tariffs are back in the headlines. But the biggest story isn't simply that new tariffs have been announced. The more important story is how those tariffs can legally be imposed. Understanding who has the authority to impose tariffs, what limitations exist, and how that authority has changed provides investors with far more insight than reacting to another headline. Today, let's look beyond the politics and focus on the legal framework that now shapes U.S. tariff policy. On July 20th, President Trump announced an additional 50% tariff on selected Canadian goods that becomes effective on August 19th. At first glance, that sounds like a sweeping change in trade policy. However, the details tell a much different story. According to the Office of the United States Trade Representative, the products covered represent nearly $20 billion of imports. While certainly meaningful, those products account for only about 5% of the approximately $383 billion of goods the United States imported from Canada during 2025. Equally important is what was excluded. Energy products, potash, fish, critical minerals, and goods already subject to national security tariffs are not covered under this action. That distinction matters because a 50% tariff on a limited list of products is very different from a 50% tariff on all imports from Canada. Understanding that difference helps put the headline into proper perspective. For investors, however, the Canadian announcement is only the beginning. The more consequential question is how broader tariffs could return after the Supreme Court eliminated the legal authority used for the administration's earlier reciprocal tariff program. To answer that question, we need to briefly revisit what changed. In April 2025, the administration announced a broad reciprocal tariff program under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, commonly known as IEEPA. IEEPA was an attractive tool because it offered extraordinary flexibility. It allowed tariffs to be implemented quickly without the lengthy administrative investigations required under many traditional trade laws. It contained no explicit tariff ceiling and no fixed expiration date, making it the broadest and fastest mechanism available. But in February 2026, the Supreme Court ruled in Learning Resources versus Trump that IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Importantly, the court did not eliminate presidential tariff authority altogether. Instead, it reaffirmed a fundamental constitutional principle. The Constitution assigns Congress the authority to regulate foreign commerce and impose import duties. Presidents may exercise tariff authority only through powers that Congress has specifically delegated by statute. The court removed one legal pathway, but it left several others intact. Following that decision, the administration immediately turned to another statute already enacted by Congress. Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 became the closest remaining alternative. Think of Section 122 as a temporary bridge rather than a permanent solution. Congress intentionally designed this authority with meaningful limitations. Import surcharges may not exceed 15%. They generally expire after 150 days unless Congress acts to extend them. The current surcharge also excludes qualifying goods covered under the USMCA, along with energy, pharmaceuticals, critical minerals, and several other major import categories. If policymakers pursue broader tariffs in the future, several statutory tools remain available. Section 301 authorizes tariffs in response to unfair foreign trade practices, but only after investigation and public process. Section 232 permits tariffs when imports threaten national security. This already supports metals, motor vehicles, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. Section 201 allows temporary safeguards for domestic industries experiencing injury. Finally, Section 338 authorizes retaliatory tariffs of up to 50% against countries discriminating against U.S. commerce. This was the authority used for the recent action involving Canada. Understanding which statute is being used tells us far more about the potential scope and durability than the headline rate alone. Financial markets often respond immediately to tariff announcements. Long-term investors should ask a different set of questions. Which legal authority is being used? How broad is that authority? What procedural requirements must be satisfied? Does Congress ultimately need to participate? Those answers help distinguish temporary policy actions from more durable changes. Rather than reacting emotionally, understanding the legal framework allows investors to evaluate developments with greater perspective and discipline. At LRG Wealth Advisors, our objective is to distinguish headlines from the legal and economic realities that shape them. When we understand the authority being exercised, the limitations Congress has established, and the process required for policy to evolve, we are better equipped to interpret events with clarity rather than speculation. That disciplined approach helps investors focus on long-term decision-making instead of short-term uncertainty. We enjoy providing helpful information to help you make sense of markets and important financial planning concepts. Engage LRG Wealth Advisors so we may apply market wisdom to your financial plan and investment portfolios so you may live the life you imagine. This is LaRue Gibson with LRG Wealth Advisors.